The music pulsed through the thin soles of my second-hand heels, each beat a reminder of how out of place I was. Sweat gathered at the nape of my neck, plastering wisps of hair to my skin. The chandelier light caught in the crystal glasses behind the bar, fracturing into 1,000 tiny rainbows that mocked the dullness of my borrowed dress. "Lily, stop fidgeting," Emma whispered, her perfectly manicured nails digging into my forearm. "We belong here as much as anyone." I wanted to believe her. Emma had always been the brave one, dragging me out of our shared apartment in the forgotten corner of the city to this glittering palace where the elite of Boston came to play. The invitation had arrived mysteriously at the restaurant where she waitressed, a golden card promising an evening where dreams were made, or shattered. "Sure," I muttered, tugging at my dress, just like Cinderella belonged at the ball. The truth was, we didn't belong here. Not among these people with their casual displays of wealth, their effortless power. I was a 24-year-old nursing student drowning in student loans, working double shifts at the hospital cafeteria just to make rent. Emma was the same. Beautiful, ambitious, but just as broke. "I need another drink," Emma declared, raising her empty glass. Her cheeks were flushed, eyes bright with something I couldn't place. Excitement? Fear? "This is our one night to pretend, Lily. One night to feel like we matter in this city." I nodded, but something cold settled in my stomach as she pushed through the crowd toward the bar. Something wasn't right. Emma had been acting strange all week, checking her phone constantly, disappearing for hours without explanation, returning with a gleam in her eyes that spoke of secrets. The crowd shifted, and that's when I first saw him. He sat in the corner booth, partially concealed by shadows despite the bright lights overhead, as if darkness itself bent to his will. My eyes registered details in fragments. The precise cut of his black suit, the heavy watch glinting on his wrist, the way his fingers, adorned with a single gold signet ring, tapped rhythmically against the polished table. 3 men flanked him, their stances rigid and vigilant despite their expensive suits. Guards, not guests. But it was his face that caught and held my attention. Sharp cheekbones, a strong jaw darkened with precisely maintained stubble, and lips curved into a smile that never reached his eyes. Those eyes, dark as midnight, observant, missing nothing. When they swept across the room, people instinctively stepped back, conversation faltering before nervously resuming. I should have looked away. Every instinct screamed danger. Instead, I watched as a young man approached his table, shoulders hunched in deference. Words were exchanged, too distant to hear. The seated man's expression never changed, but something in his posture shifted. The messenger blanched, stumbling over apologies I couldn't hear. With a flick of his wrist, such a small, elegant gesture, the seated man dismissed him. The young man retreated, visibly shaking. "That's Alexander Volkov," a voice beside me murmured. I turned to find a bartender collecting empty glasses, his eyes darting nervously to the corner. Best not to stare. "Who is he?" I asked, though part of me already knew the answer. His name had been whispered throughout Boston for years, in hushed conversations at the hospital where I interned, in nervous glances between police officers, in the oblique warnings my landlord gave about certain neighborhoods. The bartender looked at me as if I'd asked who the president was. Seriously? Volkov runs half the city, the important half. He leaned closer. The kind of man who can make problems disappear, including people who become problems. A shiver ran down my spine, but before I could respond, a commotion erupted near the bar. Emma's voice, higher than usual, tinged with panic. I pushed through the crowd to find her backed against the bar, a drink clutched to her chest. A man loomed over her, tall, expensively dressed, with a cruelty in his smile that turned my blood cold. I said, "I'm not interested." Emma's voice wavered despite her defiant words. "And I said, I don't care what you're interested in, sweetheart." His hand closed around her wrist, tight enough that she gasped. "Mr. Volkov wants to speak with you. And what he wants, he gets." Emma's eyes found mine, wide with fear. "I don't know any Mr. Volkov," she insisted, but the tremor in her voice betrayed her lie. The pieces clicked together. Her secretive behavior, the mysterious invitation, the fear hiding behind her excitement. Whatever game Emma had been playing, she was now in over her head. I moved without thinking, sliding between them. "She said she's not interested," I said, my voice steadier than I felt. "So back off." The man's eyebrows rose, amusement replacing annoyance. "And who might you be?" "Nobody," I answered truthfully. "But she's with me, and we're leaving." His laugh was cold. "Nobody leaves until Mr. Volkov says so." He reached around me for Emma, who shrank back. Something hot and reckless flared inside me, the same feeling I'd had watching my mother cower before my father's rages. The same helplessness twisted into determination. Before I could think, I'd grabbed Emma's full glass and thrown its contents directly into the man's face. Silence fell like a guillotine. Vodka dripped down his stunned features, soaking into his undoubtedly costly suit. Behind me, Emma made a small, frightened sound. Around us, partygoers stepped back, creating a circle of empty space as if I'd suddenly become radioactive. The man wiped his face slowly, expression darkening from shock to rage. "You stupid bitch," he snarled, hand rising. "Mikhail." The single word cut through the silence, soft, yet carrying the weight of absolute command. The crowd parted, and Alexander Volkov stood there, flanked by his men. Up close he was even more imposing, tall, broad-shouldered, radiating controlled power. His gaze passed over Emma dismissively before settling on me, and I felt pinned in place like a butterfly to a collection board. "What seems to be the problem?" His voice was unexpectedly pleasant, touched with the faintest accent I couldn't place. "This." Mikhail gestured at me, fury evident in every line of his body. "This nobody just assaulted me when I was delivering your invitation." Volkov's eyes, deep brown, almost black, studied me with unnerving intensity. I should have been terrified. I was terrified, but something else burned alongside the fear. Indignation, defiance, the lifetime of fighting to be seen as more than just poor, more than just struggling. "Is that what happened?" Volkov asked me directly, ignoring Mikhail's sputtering. Words failed me for a moment. Up close, the air around him seemed charged, as if he carried his own atmosphere. The scent of expensive cologne mingled with something darker, whiskey perhaps, and a hint of smoke. "He was hurting my friend," I finally managed, and didn't seem to understand the meaning of no. A flash of something, surprise, amusement, crossed his face so quickly I almost missed it. Behind him, one of his guards shifted uncomfortably. "Mikhail has always struggled with that particular word," Volkov said, his tone conversational despite the steel beneath. "A failing I've warned him about repeatedly." Mikhail paled. "Sir, I was only—" Volkov raised a hand, and Mikhail fell silent instantly. "Leave us." It wasn't clear who he meant until his guards stepped back, Mikhail with them. Only one remained, standing at a discreet distance. The crowd around us gradually dispersed, conversation resuming in nervous bursts, though I felt dozens of curious eyes still watching. Volkov's attention returned to me, and a small, unexpected smile curved his lips. "You threw a drink in my lieutenant's face." It wasn't a question, but I nodded anyway. "For your friend." His gaze flicked briefly to Emma, who was pressed against the bar as if hoping to disappear into it. Loyalty is rare these days. "It shouldn't be," I replied, heart hammering so loudly I was sure he could hear it. He tilted his head slightly, studying me as one might a curious specimen. "What's your name?" Every warning bell in my mind screamed not to answer, but my mouth moved of its own accord. Lily Chen." "Lily," he repeated, as if tasting the word. "Appropriate." I frowned, confused. "Lilies," he explained, "are flowers of death and rebirth. They appear delicate, but are remarkably resilient." His smile widened fractionally, showing the edge of perfect teeth. "I like fearless women, Lily Chen. They're so rare in my world." The compliment, if it was one, settled uncomfortably on my shoulders. I was not fearless. I was terrified, running on adrenaline, and the desperate need to protect Emma, who still hadn't moved. We should go, I said, reaching behind me for Emma's hand. We don't belong here. On the contrary, Volkov said. I think you're exactly where you need to be. He reached into his jacket and withdrew a business card, holding it between two fingers. I find myself in need of someone with your particular courage. I didn't take the card. I'm not interested. His eyebrows rose slightly. You haven't heard what I'm offering. It doesn't matter, I said, surprising myself with my certainty. Whatever it is, the answer is no. For a moment, tension crackled between us. Then, unexpectedly, he laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his face, softening the hard edges and revealing glimpses of a different man beneath the dangerous exterior. Remarkable, he murmured, more to himself than to me. He tucked the card into the small purse hanging from my wrist. When you change your mind, call that number. Only that number. I won't change my mind, I insisted. His smile was knowing, confident. We'll see. He glanced past me to Emma, his expression cooling. Your friend, however, has already made certain choices that cannot be unmade. Hasn't she, Emma? Emma made a small, choked sound. Her fingers dug into my arm. Lily, we need to leave. Now. Volkov stepped back, inclining his head in a gesture that was almost a bow. Until we meet again, Lily Chen. It wasn't a question of if, but when. The certainty in his voice raised goosebumps along my arms. I pulled Emma away, weaving through the crowd toward the exit. We didn't speak until we were outside, the cool night air a shock against my heated skin. Emma was shaking, fumbling with her phone. What the hell was that? I demanded, grabbing her arm. How does Alexander Volkov know your name? What choices was he talking about? Tears spilled down her cheeks, ruining her careful makeup. I've done something stupid, Lily. So stupid. What did you do? My voice rose despite my efforts to keep calm. Emma, that man is dangerous. Everyone knows who Volkov is, what he is. I needed money, she whispered, the words tumbling out between sobs. For my mom's treatment. You know the insurance wouldn't cover it all. And when Dad left, she swallowed hard. This guy at the restaurant said he knew people who could help. Easy money, he said. Just deliver some packages. I didn't know it was Volkov's operation. Not at first. Ice spread through my veins. Drug running? Are you insane? It was just supposed to be a few times, she pleaded. But then, I saw things I shouldn't have. Names, faces, and when I tried to stop, she shuddered. The invitation tonight wasn't random. It was a message. They know where I live, where I work, where you live. My stomach dropped. So you brought me into this? I needed backup, she said miserably. I didn't think you'd throw a drink at Mikhail Petrov. He's Volkov's enforcer, Lily. He kills people. I felt dizzy, the world tilting beneath my feet. We need to go to the police, Emma laughed bitterly. Half the force is on his payroll. The other half is too scared to touch him. Her phone buzzed, and she looked at it, face draining of color. Oh God. What now? She showed me the screen. An unknown number had sent a single message. The debt remains. 1 week. What debt? I asked, though I already knew the answer. The last package. I didn't deliver it. I took it and ran. Her voice dropped to a whisper. $200,000 worth. For my mom's treatment. The ground seemed to drop away beneath me. Emma had stolen from the most dangerous man in Boston, and now, by association, so had I. We have to leave town, I said, mind racing through impossible scenarios. Tonight. Emma nodded, wiping her tears. I have the money hidden. We can... A sleek black car pulled up beside us, engine purring quietly. The window rolled down, revealing the impassive face of the guard who had remained with Volkov. Miss Chen, he said, his voice surprisingly gentle. Mr. Volkov requests your presence. No, I said automatically, pulling Emma behind me. We're leaving. The guard's expression didn't change. That wasn't a request in the traditional sense. The back door opened. Please. Mr. Volkov doesn't like to be kept waiting. I felt the weight of the business card in my purse. suddenly heavy as a stone. "Just me," I said, decision crystallizing. "Emma stays here." "Lily, no," Emma began. "Just me," I repeated, staring at the guard. "Or neither of us." He considered for a moment, then nodded once. "Acceptable. For now." I turned to Emma, whose face was a mask of terror and guilt. "Go home. Lock the door. Don't answer for anyone." I pressed my keys into her palm. "I'll handle this." "He'll kill you," she whispered. I thought of Volkov's smile when he'd said he liked fearless women. "No," I said with more confidence than I felt. "I don't think he will." As I slid into the car's plush leather interior, the door closing with a soft, expensive thud, I wondered if I'd just made the biggest mistake of my life, or somehow, impossibly, the first right choice in a lifetime of wrong ones. The business card burned in my purse like a live coal. Whatever game Alexander Volkov was playing, I was now a piece on his board. But I had one advantage he might not expect. I had nothing left to lose. The car moved through Boston streets like a shark through dark water, silent, purposeful, untouchable. I sat rigid on buttery leather, hyper-aware of the guard's presence in the front seat, his eyes occasionally meeting mine in the rearview mirror. He'd introduced himself simply as Ray, before falling silent, leaving me alone with my thundering heartbeat and racing thoughts. We weren't heading downtown as I'd expected, but out toward the harbor. Lights glittered on the water as we curved along the coastline, eventually turning onto a private road that wound up a small hill. Security gates parted silently before us, cameras tracking our progress. The house, if you could call it that, loomed ahead, a modernist structure of glass, steel, and warm wood perched on the edge of the water. Lights glowed from within, turning the vast windows into gleaming rectangles of gold against the night sky. Two men in dark suits nodded to Ray as we pulled up, their eyes scanning me with professional detachment. "Mr. Volkov's residence," Ray explained, the first words he'd spoken since we'd left Emma trembling on the sidewalk. One of them, anyway. My throat constricted. I'd imagined being taken to some dark warehouse or club backroom, not the private home of Boston's most feared man. This was more intimate, more dangerous somehow. "Miss Chen." Ray opened my door, extending a hand I didn't take. "He's waiting." The air smelled of salt and money, that indefinable scent of extreme wealth that seems to purify even the elements around it. My borrowed heels crunched on immaculate gravel as I followed Ray to the entrance, a massive door of dark wood and glass. Inside, the wealth whispered rather than shouted. Understated elegance and clean lines, museum-quality art on the walls, furniture that invited touch while silently communicating its cost. The space opened to the water, walls of glass framing the Boston skyline across the harbor like a living painting. "This way," Ray directed, leading me through the main living area toward a hallway. "Where's Volkov?" I asked, hating the slight tremor in my voice. "Mr. Volkov," Ray corrected gently, "is concluding some business. He asked that you be made comfortable while you wait." He showed me to a room that was clearly meant for guests, a bedroom larger than my entire apartment, with its own sitting area and a bathroom I glimpsed through a partially open door. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered the same spectacular view of the harbor. "There are clothes in the closet," Ray said. "Mr. Volkov thought you might want to change." I glanced down at my borrowed dress, suddenly aware of the vodka stains from my encounter with Mikhail. "I'm fine like this." Ray nodded, his face giving nothing away. "As you wish. There's a phone on the nightstand. Press 1 if you need anything." He paused at the door. "Miss Chen, Mr. Volkov values directness. Whatever you do, don't lie to him." Before I could respond, he was gone, the door closing with a soft click that somehow conveyed it would be unwise to test whether it was locked. I sank onto the edge of the bed, my legs finally giving out. What the hell was I doing here? Emma had stolen from this man, a crime boss, a monster in an expensive suit, and instead of running as far as possible, I'd willingly entered his home. For what? Some misguided sense of bravery, the foolish hope I could negotiate Emma's safety? The business card was still in my purse. I pulled it out, running my fingers over the heavy stock. Simple, elegant, just a phone number embossed in black, no name or title. A man who needed no introduction. A soft knock pulled me from my thoughts. Before I could answer, the door opened, revealing a young woman with a tray. "Mr. Volkov thought you might be hungry," she said, setting the tray on a small table by the windows. "Or need a drink." Her slight accent matched Volkov's, Eastern European, but softened by years in America. The tray held an assortment of small bites and a crystal decanter of amber liquid that caught the light. My stomach growled traitorously. I'd been too nervous to eat before the party. "Thank you," I said, watching as she efficiently arranged everything. Do you work for him?" She smiled, a quick flash of warmth. "For 5 years now. I manage the house." She must have seen something in my expression because she added, "Mr. Volkov is a good employer." "Is he?" I couldn't keep the skepticism from my voice. Her eyes, a clear, intelligent gray, assessed me. "He can be many things, like all powerful men." She adjusted a glass needlessly. "I came to this country with nothing. He gave me work, education, citizenship. For that, I am loyal." I wanted to ask more, but she was already moving toward the door. "He will see you soon. Try the food. You'll need your strength." The door closed again, leaving me with my reflection in the dark window glass, the glittering city beyond, and the ominous weight of her last words. Despite myself, I sampled the food. Tiny, perfect bites of things I couldn't name but that melted on my tongue. I avoided the alcohol, needing a clear head, but sipped at the sparkling water also provided. The minutes stretched into what felt like hours, though the sleek clock on the wall told me only 40 minutes had passed since I'd entered this gilded cage. When the door finally opened again, I was standing at the window, watching boats move across the harbor, tiny constellations of light in the darkness. I didn't turn immediately, using the glass's reflection to see Alexander Volkov enter, dismissing whoever had opened the door for him with a small gesture. He'd removed his suit jacket, his crisp white shirt rolled up at the sleeves to reveal strong forearms dusted with dark hair. The gold signet ring gleamed on his right hand. He looked more relaxed here, in his domain, yet somehow even more dangerous for it. "The view is one of my favorite things about this house," he said, moving to stand beside me, though with enough distance to avoid crowding me. "The city looks different from here, doesn't it? Smaller, manageable." I turned to face him directly, refusing to be drawn into casual conversation. "Why am I here?" His mouth quirked in that almost smile. "Direct." "Good." He gestured to the sitting area. "Please." I remained standing. "I'd rather know what you want with me." "Many things," he answered, his gaze steady on mine. Beginning with a conversation. When I still didn't move, he sighed. "Miss Chen, Lily, I understand your caution. But if I meant you harm, we wouldn't be talking in my favorite guest room over Katerina's excellent canapés." The logic was undeniable. Reluctantly, I took a seat in one of the armchairs, perching on the edge. Volkov sat opposite me, his posture relaxed yet attentive. "Your friend has created a problem for me," he said without preamble. "A significant one. Emma made a mistake," I began. "A mistake," he repeated, voice flat. "Is that what you call stealing $200,000 and compromising one of my distribution networks?" Put that way, it sounded far worse than Emma's tearful confession. She was desperate. Her mother is dying. "Many people face tragedy without resorting to theft," he countered. "Particularly from men like me." He leaned forward slightly. "Do you know what happens to people who steal from me, Lily?" My mouth went dry. "I can imagine." "Can you?" His voice was soft, almost gentle. "The punishment must match the crime. Must be visible enough to discourage others. It's not personal. It's business." "Emma isn't business," I said, anger flaring. "She's a person who made a terrible choice because she had no options left." "We all have options," Volkov said. "Always." He studied me for a long moment. "You, for instance, had the option to walk away tonight. Instead, you threw a drink at Mikhail Petrov, a man who has killed for far less, then voluntarily got into my car," his head tilted slightly. "Why?" The question caught me off guard. Why had I? "Emma," is my friend. Friendship doesn't typically extend to risking one's life, he observed, especially for someone who put you in danger without your knowledge. The accusation stung because it held a grain of truth. I pushed it aside. What do you want from me, Mr. Volkov? If it's the money, Emma has it. Take it and let us disappear. A smile played around his lips. Alexander, please. And it's not just about the money, though that will be returned. He reached for the decanter, pouring himself a measure of whiskey. Your friend didn't just take cash. She took something far more valuable to me. Trust, reliability, my reputation for both. He sipped his drink, eyes never leaving mine. In my world, reputation is currency more valuable than cash. Emma damaged that currency, so this is about revenge, I said flatly. Justice, he corrected. There's a difference. Not to the person being punished. That earned me a genuine smile, transforming his face again with that glimpse of a different man. One who might, in another life, have been merely charming instead of lethal. You're not what I expected, Lily Chen, he said, setting down his glass. Tell me about yourself. I blinked at the sudden change in direction. What? Your life. Your story. He gestured expansively. What brings a woman like you, intelligent, principled, fiercely loyal, to be living in that run-down apartment building on Dorchester Avenue? To be friends with someone who would risk your safety so carelessly? My shock must have shown on my face because he added, Yes, I know where you live, where you work, that you're studying nursing while supporting yourself on cafeteria wages. That your mother died when you were 14, and your father is currently serving his third stint in Walpole for assault. Ice spread through my veins. You've investigated me, thoroughly. He agreed without apology. I make it a point to know everything about people who interest me. I don't want to interest you, I said, the words coming out more desperate than defiant. Yet you do. His eyes, so dark they were almost black in this light, held mine. You stood up to Mikhail when men twice your size wouldn't. You offered yourself in your friend's place without hesitation. You look at me without flinching when seasoned criminals can't meet my eyes. He leaned forward. Do you know how rare that is? How valuable? There was something in his voice, a hunger, a fascination, that frightened me more than any threat could have. This wasn't just about Emma or money. Something about me had caught the attention of a predator, and I had no idea how to escape his focus. What do you want? I asked again, my voice barely above a whisper. Alexander sat back, seeming to come to a decision. I want to offer you a job. Of all the things I'd expected, that wasn't on the list. A job? I have business interests beyond what you're imagining, he said. Legitimate ones. One is a private medical facility that serves my employees and associates. It needs someone with your particular qualities. You want me to work at your hospital? I couldn't keep the disbelief from my voice. Why? Because you're qualified. Because you need money. Don't look surprised. Student loans are crippling. I know exactly how much you owe, and because it solves our immediate problem elegantly. Which is? Your friend's debt, he said simply. Work for me for 1 year, and I'll consider Emma's transgression paid in full. She returns the money, of course, but there will be no further consequences. The offer hung in the air between us. A deal with the devil, wrapped in reasonable terms, and delivered in that cultured voice. And if I refuse? His expression didn't change, but something in his eyes hardened. Then the traditional resolution applies. To her, not to you, he added, as if that should comfort me. Why me? I pressed. You must have dozens of nurses on your payroll. Hundreds, he agreed. But none with your particular combination of skills, intelligence, and... He paused, searching for the right word. Moral courage. There's nothing moral about working for a criminal, I shot back. His laugh was unexpected, rich, genuine, yet with an edge that reminded me of exactly who and what he was. Says the woman who was ready to flee the city with stolen drug money an hour ago. I flushed, having no response to that. He was right. My moral high ground was shaky at best. 1 year, he repeated. Working in a state-of-the-art medical facility, earning triple your current salary with all your student loans paid off at the end. He spread his hands. In exchange for your friend's life. Seems like a bargain to me. The weight of the choice pressed down on me. I thought of Emma, terrified and waiting for my return. I thought of what men like Volkov did to thieves. I thought of my student loans, the constant grinding poverty, the exhaustion of working and studying with no end in sight. If I say yes, I said slowly, I want guarantees, written contracts, Emma's safety assured in writing. His eyes gleamed with something like approval. Of course, I'm a businessman, Lily. Everything will be properly documented, and I'm not doing anything illegal, I added firmly. No treating gunshot wounds off the books, no providing drugs, nothing that would compromise my license or ethics. The facility is fully licensed and accredited, he assured me. You would be doing exactly what you're training to do, providing care to those who need it. I took a deep breath. I need to think about it. Naturally. He stood, buttoning his shirt cuff where it had come undone. You have until tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. He reached into his pocket and withdrew a small, slim phone. Use this to call the number on my card when you've decided. It's secure. I took it automatically, our fingers brushing briefly. His were surprisingly warm. In the meantime, you're welcome to stay here, he continued. Katerina can bring you anything you need. I need to talk to Emma, I said. She needs to know she's safe, for now at least. He considered this, then nodded once. You may call her on that phone. Tell her the money must be returned tomorrow, in full. Tell her nothing else of our arrangement. His voice hardened slightly. That stays between us. He moved toward the door, then paused, looking back at me with an expression I couldn't read. You've had a lifetime of people failing you, Lily. Your father, your friends, the system itself. I understand that better than you might think. His smile was small but genuine. I never fail those who are loyal to me. Remember that when making your decision. The door closed behind him with a soft click, and I was alone again in the luxurious prison. I stared at the phone in my hand. Small, sleek, undoubtedly untraceable. A burner, the kind used for a single purpose, then discarded. Just like he intended to use me. My hands trembled as I dialed Emma's number. She answered on the first ring. Lily? Oh my God, are you okay? Where are you? I'm fine, I said, moving to the window where the city lights blurred through unshed tears. I'm at Volkov's house. His house? Her voice rose in panic. What does he want? Did he hurt you? No, I said, pressing my forehead against the cool glass. He wants the money back, Emma. All of it by tomorrow morning. Silence, then a shaky exhale. And then what? I closed my eyes, Volkov's offer replaying in my mind. Tell her nothing else of our arrangement, and then we'll see. But you need to have it ready. Lily? What aren't you telling me? I'd never been able to lie to Emma, not successfully anyway. We'd been roommates for 3 years, friends for 5 since meeting in community college. She knew all my tells. He made me an offer, I said carefully, to work for him, at his medical facility. What? No, her voice cracked. This is all my fault. I never should have. Stop, I cut her off. What's done is done. We deal with what's in front of us now. I sounded like my mother in her rare moments of clarity before cancer took her. Practical, determined, resigned to the hand life had dealt. You can't work for him, Emma insisted. He's a monster, Lily. The things I've heard. She trailed off. Right now, he's the monster holding all the cards, I replied. Have the money ready. I'll call you in the morning with instructions. I paused. And Emma, don't do anything stupid, please. After we hung up, I sank onto the bed, exhaustion hitting me like a physical blow. The digital clock on the nightstand read 1:37 a.m., less than 9 hours to decide my future, and Emma's. Despite my determination to stay awake, to plan, to find some third option beyond accepting Volkov's offer or condemning Emma, sleep ambushed me. I dreamed of lilies floating on dark water, of my father's hands, capable of both tenderness and terrible violence, and of Alexander Volkov's eyes watching me from the shadows. I woke to sunlight streaming through the windows I'd forgotten to cover, and the disorienting sensation of unfamiliar luxury. For a moment, I couldn't remember where I was or how I'd gotten there. Then reality crashed back. The party, Emma's confession, Volkov's offer. A soft knock preceded Katerina's entrance. She carried a tray with coffee and what smelled like freshly baked pastries. "Good morning," she said, setting the tray down and moving to the closet. "Mr. Volkov thought you might want fresh clothes. There are several options that should fit." She gestured to a door I hadn't noticed last night. "The bathroom has everything you need. Mr. Volkov will see you at 9:30. I glanced at the clock. 8:15. "I slept in these clothes," I said, suddenly self-conscious in my rumpled dress. "I must look human," she finished for me, a small smile softening her professional demeanor. "It's refreshing in this house." She poured coffee into a delicate cup and handed it to me. "Drink, eat, shower. It helps to face difficult decisions with a clear head." After she left, I did as suggested, grateful for the scalding water that seemed to wash away not just the physical grime of yesterday, but some of the mental fog as well. The closet held an array of clothes in my size, everything from casual wear to business attire. I chose the simplest option, black pants and a blue silk blouse that probably cost more than a month's rent. Precisely at 9:30, Ray appeared to escort me downstairs. The house was quieter in daylight, sunlight streaming through the vast windows to illuminate spaces I'd only glimpsed in darkness. We passed a kitchen where staff worked efficiently, a dining room set for one, and finally reached a study overlooking the water. Alexander sat behind a desk of polished wood, reading something on a sleek laptop. Sunlight caught in his dark hair, revealing threads of silver at the temples I hadn't noticed last night. He looked up as we entered, closing the computer with a decisive click. "Lily," he said, rising. "Did you sleep well?" The normality of the question in such abnormal circumstances nearly made me laugh. "Well enough." He gestured to a chair across from his desk. "Please sit. Coffee, or something stronger?" "Coffee is fine," I said, taking the seat. This room, unlike the rest of the house with its contemporary minimalism, felt older, more personal. Leather-bound books lined shelves, a chess set stood mid-game on a side table, and what looked like family photos in silver frames occupied one corner of his desk, though they were angled away from visitors. Ray poured coffee from a carafe and silently withdrew, closing the door behind him. Alexander watched me over the rim of his own cup. "Have you decided?" he asked finally. I set down my untouched coffee. "I have questions first." "Of course." He leaned back in his chair, relaxed, as if we were discussing a normal job offer. "This medical facility, what exactly is it? Who are the patients?" "It's called the Riverside Wellness Center," he replied. "Officially, it's a private hospital specializing in discreet care for high-profile individuals. In reality, it serves 3 types of patients: my legitimate business associates who prefer privacy, my other associates who cannot seek treatment through normal channels, and residents of certain neighborhoods under my protection who can't afford proper health care." "Under your protection," I repeated. "You mean territories where you sell drugs and run prostitution?" His expression didn't change, but something cold flickered in his eyes. "I mean neighborhoods where the police don't go, where the city has forgotten its obligations, and where people would die without alternatives." He leaned forward. "I provide those alternatives." "Out of the goodness of your heart?" "Out of practicality," he corrected. "Dead customers don't buy products. Dead workers don't produce. And contrary to what you might believe, I do have certain principles. Like not killing nursing students unless absolutely necessary?" I couldn't keep the bitterness from my voice. Unexpectedly, he smiled. "Like recognizing potential when I see it." He pushed a folder across the desk toward me. "Your contract, as requested, everything in writing." I opened it cautiously, scanning the pages. It was indeed a legitimate employment contract. Salary, 3 times what I currently made as promised, benefits, confidentiality clauses, and specific provisions about the nature of the work I would be doing. Most surprising was the addendum at the back, a formal agreement pardoning Emma's debt in exchange for my 1 year of service and the return of the stolen money. "This is thorough," I said, still searching for the trap. "I told you, I'm a businessman." He steepled his fingers. "Everything I do, everything is based on value. Emma created a deficit in value. You're balancing the scales by working as a nurse." By working as my nurse, he clarified. There's a difference. The emphasis sent a shiver down my spine. What does that mean exactly? It means your primary responsibility will be to me and the facility patients I designate as priorities. He shrugged slightly. Most of the time, you'll function as any other nurse. Occasionally, I'll have special requirements. What kind of requirements? Nothing illegal, he assured me, clearly reading my suspicion. Nothing that violates your professional ethics. But absolute discretion, absolute loyalty, and availability when needed, regardless of scheduled hours. It sounded reasonable enough on the surface, but I sensed deeper waters beneath. And in exchange, Emma goes free, unharmed. Provided she returns the money and never enters my territory again, he confirmed. Yes, how do I know you'll keep your word? I asked. His expression hardened. Because unlike your friend, I value my reputation. My word is binding. He picked up a pen, rolling it between his fingers. There are witnesses to our arrangement. Documentation. Insurance, if you will. I thought of Emma, of her mother wasting away from cancer, the same disease that had taken my own mother. I thought of my student loans, the endless cycle of work and study that left me exhausted and still barely scraping by. I thought of the threat implied in Volkov's controlled power, in the guards that surrounded him, in the casual way he'd investigated my entire life. If I sign this, I said slowly, I want one more condition. His eyebrows rose. You're not exactly in a position to negotiate, Lily. Maybe not, but you said you value me for my moral courage. So here it is. I met his gaze steadily. I want access to provide care to any resident of your protected neighborhoods who needs it, not just the ones you designate. For a long moment, he simply studied me, his expression unreadable. Then, slowly, a smile spread across his face, not the cold, calculated one I'd seen at the party, but something warmer, almost admiring. Remarkable, he murmured, echoing his words from our first meeting. He reached for the contract, made a notation in the margin, initialed it. Done. 2 afternoons a week, you can run a clinic for neighborhood residents. Under protection of my men, of course. I blinked, surprised at how easily he'd conceded. Why would you agree to that? Because it confirms what I suspected about you, he said, sliding the contract back to me with the pen. You negotiate for others, not yourself. That's useful to me. His eyes held mine. And because it pleases me to give you what you want when the cost is so small. The way he said it, the pleasure he took in granting my request, sent another shiver through me. This one harder to categorize as simply fear. I signed. Alexander took the contract, signing his own name with a flourish before pressing a small button on his desk. Almost immediately, Ray entered with another man I recognized as one of the guards from the party, the one who'd remained with Volkov when he dismissed the others. Witnesses, Alexander explained. They signed on the designated lines, then departed with the original contract, leaving a copy for me. It's done then, I said, a strange numbness spreading through me. Not quite. Alexander stood. There's the matter of the money. As if on cue, the door opened again, and Mikhail entered. The man I'd thrown a drink at, the one Emma feared. His eyes locked on me with cold hatred, but he addressed Volkov. She's here, he said, with the package. My heart hammered against my ribs. Emma's here? Alexander nodded. I sent Ray to collect her and the money this morning. Insurance that you would follow through. The calculated manipulation should have angered me, but I was too relieved at the thought of seeing Emma to care. Alexander moved around his desk, extending his hand to help me up. After a moment's hesitation, I took it, his fingers warm and firm around mine. Mikhail will escort you, he said, releasing my hand. I'll join you shortly. Mikhail's jaw tightened, but he nodded stiffly. The look he gave me promised retribution at some future date. I lifted my chin, refusing to be intimidated now that I had Alexander's protection, a thought that was both comforting and disturbing in its implication. We walked in tense silence to what appeared to be a formal sitting room at the front of the house. Emma stood by the window, clutching a duffel bag and looking like she hadn't slept at all. When she saw me, her face crumpled. Lily! She rushed forward, but Mikhail blocked her path with one arm. The package first, he said coldly. Emma thrust the duffel bag at him. It's all there. Count it if you want. He took it with a sneer. Mr. Volkov will decide if it's all there. And as soon as he stepped aside, Emma threw her arms around me. I was so worried, she whispered. What did they do to you? What did he make you agree to? I'm fine, I assured her, aware of Mikhail watching us with undisguised contempt. Everything's going to be okay now, she pulled back, searching my face. What did you do, Lily? Before I could answer, the door opened and Alexander entered. The effect on the room was immediate. Mikhail straightened, Emma stiffened, and even I felt myself becoming more alert, more aware of every movement. Miss Larson, Alexander addressed Emma with cool politeness. I trust the funds have been returned in full? Emma nodded jerkily. Every dollar. He turned to Mikhail. Verify it. Mikhail unzipped the bag, revealing neat stacks of cash. He began counting methodically while we stood in uncomfortable silence. Finally, he looked up. It's all here, sir. Excellent. Alexander smiled thinly. Then our business is concluded, Miss Larson. His gaze flicked to me. Almost. Emma clutched my arm. What does that mean? Lily? I took a deep breath. It means you're free to go, Emma. The debt is cleared. And you? I couldn't meet her eyes. I've taken a job with Mr. Volkov, at his medical facility. No, she breathed. Lily, you can't. It's done, I said firmly. 1 year. It's a good opportunity, Emma. Triple my current salary, student loans paid off. I forced a smile. Think of it as a blessing in disguise. She wasn't fooled. This is because of me, isn't it? You made some deal. She turned to Alexander. Whatever she promised you, I'll do it instead. This was my mistake. Indeed it was. He agreed, his voice hardening. A mistake that would typically cost far more than money. His eyes, cold as winter, fixed on her. Consider yourself fortunate that your friend values your life more than you valued her safety when you involved her in your theft. Emma flinched as if struck. Lily, please. The matter is settled. Alexander cut in. Lily has signed a contract of employment. You have returned what you stole. You are now free to leave Boston, and I strongly suggest you do immediately. I'm not leaving without Lily, Emma insisted. I squeezed her hand. Yes, you are. Your mom needs you, remember? That's what this was all about. Tears spilled down her cheeks. I can't just leave you with him. I'll be fine, I assured her, though my own confidence wavered. It's just a job, Emma. Just a... Miss Larson. Alexander interrupted, checking his watch. Ray will drive you to your apartment to collect your belongings, then to the train station. You have a ticket to Chicago departing at 3. I suggest you be on it. The finality in his tone silenced further protests. Emma hugged me fiercely, whispering, I'm so sorry, against my hair. I held her tight, wondering if I'd ever see her again, then gently pushed her toward the door where Ray waited. Take care of your mom, I said, forcing a smile. And yourself. She wiped her tears, shooting a venomous look at Alexander before following Ray. The door closed behind them with a sound of finality. Alexander, Mikhail, and I stood in silence for a moment. Then Alexander nodded to Mikhail, who left with the duffel bag, leaving us alone. That went well, Alexander remarked, as if we just concluded a normal business meeting. I turned on him. You had no right to banish her from Boston. I had every right, he corrected mildly. She stole from me, involved an innocent party, you, and compromised an important distribution network. The traditional penalty would be far more permanent than exile. The casual reminder of what could have happened chilled me. When do I start work? Tomorrow, he said. 9 a.m. One of my men will collect you from your apartment. I blinked in surprise. I'm free to go home? That amused him. Did you think you were a prisoner here, Lily? You've signed a contract, not entered captivity. He moved to a sideboard, pouring himself a drink. You're free to maintain your normal life. Your apartment, your studies. I simply require your professional services and loyalty for 1 year. It seemed too simple, too clean. And after the year? He sipped his drink, regarding me over the rim. After the year, you're free to go, or to negotiate a new arrangement should you wish. Something in his tone, in the way his eyes lingered on me, suggested he expected the latter. The confidence should have irritated me, but instead it sent an unexpected heat through my veins. "I should go," I said, suddenly needing air, space, distance from his overwhelming presence. "Of course." He set down his glass. "Ray will return shortly to drive you home." "I can take a cab." "You can," he agreed, "but you won't. I prefer to ensure your safe arrival." It wasn't a request. While we waited for Ray, Alexander gave me a tour of the main floor of his home. In daylight, the house was even more impressive. The art I'd glimpsed last night revealed as museum-quality pieces. The furnishings a perfect blend of comfort and sophistication. He showed me his library, filled with books in multiple languages, many first editions. The kitchen, where Katerina directed a small staff preparing lunch. The terrace overlooking the water, where a table was set for one. "Will you join me for lunch before you go?" he asked. I shook my head. "I should get back. I have studying to do." He accepted this without argument. "Another time, then." Ray returned within the hour, and I was soon settled in the back of the sleek black car, watching Alexander's house recede behind us. The normality of the city streets felt surreal after the alternate reality of Volkov's world. People going about their daily lives, unaware of the shadow power that flowed beneath the city's surface, shaping and controlling more than they knew. "Miss Chen?" Ray said as we approached my apartment building, the shabby 5-story walk-up that looked even shabbier after a night in luxury. "Mr. Volkov asked me to give you this." He handed back a slim envelope. Inside was a credit card in my name and another business card, this one with Alexander's personal number. "The card has a $5,000 limit," Ray explained, "for any immediate needs. Your first paycheck won't be until the end of the month." $5,000, more money than I'd ever had at one time. "I can't accept this." Ray's expression didn't change. "Mr. Volkov insists. Consider it a signing bonus." I slipped the cards back into the envelope. "Tell him thank you, but I'll be fine until payday." A small smile cracked Ray's professional demeanor. "I'll tell him, but he won't be pleased. I get the feeling Mr. Volkov is used to getting his way." "Always," Ray confirmed. We had reached my building, and he got out to open my door. "9 tomorrow morning, Miss Chen. I'll be here to collect you." Inside my apartment, Emma's absence hit me like a physical blow. Her suitcase was gone, along with her photos and the small comforts that had made this place feel like home. On the kitchen counter was a note scrawled on the back of a receipt. "I'll never forgive myself for this. I'll find a way to fix it, I promise. Stay safe. Love you." I sank onto our threadbare couch, the events of the last 24 hours crashing over me. What had I done? Signed away a year of my life to a crime boss. Sent away my best friend. Entered a world I'd always known existed but had carefully avoided. Yet beneath the fear and uncertainty lay something else. A strange, unexpected excitement. For the first time in my life, I'd taken control of my destiny. Made a choice that wasn't just reaction to circumstances. The price was high, but the benefits were real. Financial security, professional experience, and the chance to help people who had even less than I did. And then there was Alexander himself. Dangerous, certainly. Ruthless, without question. But also complex in ways I hadn't expected. The way he looked at me, like I was a puzzle he wanted to solve, a rare book he wanted to read page by page, both terrified and thrilled me. I showered, changed into my own worn but comfortable clothes, and tried to study. The words in my textbook blurred as my thoughts kept drifting to dark eyes and that voice. Cultured, commanding, promising both threat and protection in the same breath. Just before midnight, my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. "Sleep well, Lily. Tomorrow begins our partnership." Such a simple message, yet it sent a shiver down my spine. I stared at it for a long time before finally replying, "I'll be ready." When sleep finally came, I dreamed again of lilies on dark water. But this time, I was among them, floating, waiting for a hand to pluck me from the depths. Morning came too quickly. I dressed with unusual care, simple black pants, a white blouse, comfortable shoes suitable for hospital work. I braided my long hair back, applied minimal makeup, and waited by the window for Ray's car. Precisely at 9, the black sedan pulled up. As I walked downstairs to meet my new life, I felt strangely calm. I had made my choice, signed my name. Whatever came next, whatever Alexander Volkov truly wanted from me, I would face it on my feet. Ray opened the car door, and I slid inside to find Alexander himself waiting in the back seat, impeccably dressed in a charcoal suit, his dark eyes watching me with that same fascinating intensity. "Good morning, Lily," he said, his voice wrapping around my name like silk. "Ready for your first day?" "As ready as I'll ever be," I replied, settling into the leather seat beside him. Something like approval flickered in his eyes. Nervousness would be understandable, yet you don't show it. Would it make a difference if I did? His mouth curved. "No. But your composure continues to impress me." The car glided through morning traffic, taking us not toward the harbor where his home stood, but into an upscale area of the city where glass medical towers gleamed in the sunlight. We pulled into an underground parking garage beneath a sleek building with Riverside Wellness Center, displayed in understated lettering above the entrance. "Your new workplace," Alexander said as Ray opened the door. "At least officially." The "at least" sent a ripple of unease through me, but I kept my expression neutral as I followed him into a private elevator that required both a key card and fingerprint scan. We ascended in silence, the only sound the soft hum of the elevator and my own heartbeat in my ears. The doors opened onto a reception area that looked more like a luxury hotel than a medical facility. Soft lighting, tasteful art, plush seating, and a marble desk where a poised receptionist greeted Alexander with obvious deference. "Good morning, Mr. Volkov. Everything is prepared as you requested." "Thank you, Sophie. This is Lily Chen, our newest nurse. She'll need full access credentials." Sophie's eyes swept over me with professional assessment before she smiled. "Of course. Welcome to Riverside, Ms. Chen." The tour that followed revealed a facility that surpassed any hospital I'd ever worked in. State-of-the-art equipment, private rooms more luxurious than high-end hotel suites, and a staff-to-patient ratio that would make any medical professional envious. Dr. Marcus Hayes, the medical director, greeted us in his office. A distinguished man in his 50s who spoke to Alexander with the careful respect of someone who knew exactly who signed his generous paychecks. "Miss Chen comes highly recommended," Alexander told him, the lie smooth as glass. "I expect her to be fully integrated into the team, with special assignment to my personal cases as needed." Dr. Hayes nodded. "Of course, Mr. Volkov. We'll start her orientation today." "Good." Alexander turned to me. "Dr. Hayes will handle your professional orientation. After lunch, you'll meet with my head of security to review protocols specific to my sensitive patients." The day passed in a blur of introductions, paperwork, and training sessions. The facility was everything Alexander had promised: legitimate, professional, and providing genuinely excellent care. Yet beneath the polished surface, I noticed the subtle signs of its true nature: security measures far beyond normal hospital protocols, certain areas accessible only with the highest clearance, and the careful way staff avoided discussing certain patients. By late afternoon, I found myself in the office of Anton Petrov, Mikhail's older brother, as it turned out, though with none of his siblings' volatile temperament. As head of security, he outlined the special procedures for what he called priority patients. "These individuals require absolute discretion," he explained, his accent thicker than Alexander's. "No records outside our secure system. No discussions outside these walls. No questions about injuries or identities." "I understand," I said, though my stomach nodded at the implications. "Mr. Volkov said you would." Anton's expression remained impassive, but his eyes held a calculating assessment. "He has unusual confidence in you. Don't disappoint him." The warning was clear, even without elaboration. When I was finally escorted back to the main lobby at 7 that evening, I was surprised to find Alexander waiting, engaged in quiet conversation with a man whose expensive suit couldn't hide his military bearing. "Ah, Lily," Alexander said, ending his conversation with a nod to the other man. "Your first day is complete. Impressions?" "Impressive," I admitted truthfully. "The facility is exceptional. I accept nothing less," he replied. "Come. You must be hungry." Before I could protest, I was being guided back to his car. Ray holding the door open with his usual stoic expression. "I thought I'd be going home," I said as Alexander slid in beside me. "Eventually," he agreed, "but first, dinner, a celebration of our new arrangement." The restaurant was exclusive enough that it had no sign, just a discreet entrance where staff greeted Alexander by name and ushered us to a private dining room overlooking the harbor. The chef himself appeared to discuss the menu, and wine was poured without orders being placed. "You're uncomfortable," Alexander observed after the staff had departed, leaving us alone with our drinks. "This isn't necessary," I said, gesturing to our opulent surroundings. "Few things truly are," he replied. "But I enjoy quality, and I wish to know you better outside of our professional arrangement." I took a sip of wine to buy time. "Why? Because you intrigue me." He leaned forward slightly. "Do you know how rare that is, to find someone genuinely surprising in my world?" The intensity of his gaze made it difficult to breathe. "I'm really not that interesting." "On the contrary." He sat back, studying me. "Tell me about your mother." The question caught me off guard. "My mother?" "You mentioned she died of cancer when you were 14, the same disease affecting Emma's mother. I suspect that connection influenced your decision to help Emma, despite the risk to yourself. The casual display of knowledge about my life still unsettled me. She was diagnosed when I was 12. Fought for 2 years before it took her." "And your father?" My jaw tightened. "What about him?" "He went to prison shortly after her death. 3rd conviction for assault, correct? Was he violent toward you and your mother as well?" I set my glass down harder than intended. "Is this an interview or an interrogation?" Alexander's expression softened fractionally. "Neither. It's me trying to understand the woman who now works for me, the woman who threw a drink at Mikhail Petrov without hesitation to protect her friend." "There's not much to understand," I said, looking away. "My father was an alcoholic with a temper. My mother did her best until cancer took her. I raised myself from 14 on, bouncing between relatives who saw me as a burden until I was old enough to be on my own. Yet you pursued nursing, caring for others despite having received so little care yourself." There was something like genuine admiration in his voice. "That requires remarkable strength." Discomfort at his insight made me change the subject. "What about you?" The accent. "Russian?" "Ukrainian, originally," he corrected. "Though I left when I was 10. And your family?" A shadow crossed his face. "Dead. All of them." The flat finality of his statement silenced my next question. Thankfully, our food arrived, providing a reprieve from the increasingly personal conversation. Over the next 3 courses, each more exquisite than the last, Alexander steered us to safer topics. My studies, my career ambitions, my impressions of the Riverside facility. He was an attentive listener, his questions demonstrating both intelligence and genuine curiosity. By dessert, I found myself almost enjoying his company, despite the circumstances that had brought us together. "You're smiling," he observed as coffee was served. "The first real smile I've seen from you." I hadn't realized it myself. The food was amazing. Indeed, but I think it's more than that. He set down his cup. "You're beginning to see that our arrangement might not be the prison sentence you initially feared." I sobered immediately. "It's still not a choice I would have made freely." "Few choices in life are truly free," he countered. "We all operate within constraints, some financial, some familial, some self-imposed. The illusion of complete freedom is just that, an illusion." "That's a convenient philosophy for someone who coerces others into serving him," I said before I could stop myself. Instead of anger, his response was a genuine laugh. "Touché, Lily. Your honesty is refreshing." His smile faded into something more serious. "But consider this. In 1 year, your student loans will be paid, your nursing degree complete, and you'll have experience at one of the most advanced medical facilities in the country, all while helping those who would otherwise receive no care at all." He leaned forward. "Is that truly such a terrible fate?" Put that way, it did sound more like opportunity than punishment. Still, I couldn't forget how we'd arrived at this point. "And Emma? What happens when the year is up? Will she be safe to return to Boston?" His expression cooled slightly. "That depends on her choices, and yours." The implied threat wasn't subtle. I nodded, understanding the boundaries of our arrangement more clearly now. Ray drove me home afterward, Alexander remaining at the restaurant for business matters. As we pulled up to my apartment building, Ray handed me an envelope. "Your new schedule and security protocols," he explained. "Mr. Volkov also asked me to give you this." This turned out to be a small velvet box. Inside was a delicate silver bracelet with a single charm, a lily, crafted in platinum and diamonds. "I can't accept this," I said immediately. Ray's expression didn't change. "It's not a gift, Miss Chen. It contains a tracking device and panic button. Standard security for Mr. Volkov's key personnel." I lifted the bracelet, noting its surprising weight. "And if I refuse to wear it, that would suggest a concerning lack of commitment to your new position," Ray replied neutrally. I slipped it onto my wrist, the cool metal settling against my skin like a promise. Or a shackle. 6 months passed in a blur of new routines. 5 days a week at Riverside, treating the wealthy, the connected, and occasionally the bloodied enforcers of Alexander's empire. True to our agreement, I spent 2 afternoons weekly at a small clinic in one of his protected neighborhoods, providing care to people who otherwise would have none. I saw Alexander regularly but unpredictably, sometimes daily, sometimes with weeks between encounters. He would appear at Riverside to check on specific patients, summon me to his office to discuss my work, or occasionally invite me to dinner to review my progress. Each time, the strange tension between us grew, a complex mixture of fear, fascination, respect, and something more dangerous I refused to name. Emma called weekly from Chicago, where she'd found work and an apartment near her mother, whose treatments were showing promising results. She never asked about Alexander, and I never volunteered information about my increasingly complicated relationship with him. I was finishing a shift at the neighborhood clinic when Mikhail appeared in the doorway, his perpetual scowl firmly in place. "Mr. Volkov wants you, now." My stomach knotted. In 6 months, Alexander had never sent Mikhail to fetch me. Something was wrong. We drove in tense silence to Alexander's house rather than the Riverside facility. Ray met us at the door, his normally impassive face tight with concern. "He's in the study," he told me. Gunshot wound to the shoulder, refused to go to Riverside. Fear propelled me forward. I found Alexander sitting behind his desk, pale but composed, his right shoulder darkly stained with blood that had soaked through his white shirt and suit jacket. "You should be at the hospital," I said, dropping the medical bag Ray had thrust into my hands and moving to his side. "And answer tedious questions? No." His voice was steady, but pain tightened the corners of his eyes. "That's why I have you." I helped him remove his jacket and shirt, revealing a through-and-through wound that had thankfully missed anything vital. As I cleaned and treated the injury with supplies from the fully stocked medical room adjoining his study, he watched me work with an intensity that had nothing to do with pain. "Who shot you?" I asked, focusing on my task. "Someone who will not live to see morning," he replied matter-of-factly. "A disagreement with the Italians from Providence." I secured the bandage, trying not to think about the retribution that would follow. "You'll need antibiotics and pain management." "Already arranged." His uninjured hand caught mine as I finished. "You've become indispensable to me, Lily." The way he said it, soft, almost intimate, sent a shiver down my spine. "I'm just doing my job." "No," he contradicted. "You're doing far more than our contract requires. The clinic, the extra hours, the questions you don't ask when certain patients arrive with certain injuries." I tried to withdraw my hand, but his grip tightened gently. "The year is half over," he continued. "I find myself reluctant to see it end." My pulse quickened. "Alexander, I'm offering you permanence," he said. "A position as head of nursing at Riverside, triple your current salary, complete autonomy for your neighborhood clinic work." I stared at him, caught between shock and suspicion. "Why?" "Because you've earned it." His thumb traced circles on my wrist, just below the bracelet he'd given me. "And because I've grown accustomed to having you in my world." 6 months ago, I would have rejected the offer instantly. Now, I hesitated. The work at Riverside was challenging and rewarding. The clinic was making a real difference in lives typically forgotten by the healthcare system. And Alexander himself, complicated, dangerous, yet undeniably compelling, had become a central figure in my life. "I need time to think," I said finally. He released my hand, nodding. "Of course. But know this, Lily. His dark eyes held mine. "Whatever you decide about the professional offer, my personal interest in you remains unchanged." The words hung between us, acknowledging what had been building for months. "I should go," I whispered. "Stay," he countered. "Just for tonight. As my nurse, if nothing else." I knew I should refuse. Instead, I found myself nodding. That night became the first of many I spent at Alexander's house. Initially monitoring his wound, then gradually, inevitably, drawn deeper into his world, his life, his bed. What began as obligation evolved into choice, then into something I'd never expected: partnership. By the time my contract year ended, I had accepted the position at Riverside, moved into Alexander's house, and negotiated Emma's safe return to Boston. Though she chose to remain in Chicago with her recovering mother, Alexander Volkov remained what he was: powerful, dangerous, ruthless in business. But with me, he showed a different face: protective, generous, unexpectedly vulnerable in rare private moments. The man who'd once terrified me became the man who cherished me, who respected my independence while offering a security I'd never known. Was it perfect? No. His world still contained darkness I couldn't fully embrace. We argued about boundaries, about the ethics of certain operations, about the line between protection and control. But in me, he'd found someone who wouldn't flinch from his reality while still holding firm to her own principles. And in him, I'd found someone who saw my strength as an asset rather than a threat. 1 year after throwing my drink at Mikhail Petrov, I stood on the terrace of what was now our home, watching the city lights reflect on the harbor. Alexander's arms encircled me from behind, his chin resting on my head. "Regrets?" he asked, a question he still posed occasionally, as if expecting my answer to change. I turned in his arms, studying the face that had become beloved to me despite all odds. Only that it took such dangerous circumstances for us to meet. His smile, the real one, the one few people ever saw, warmed his eyes. I meant what I said that first night. I've always liked fearless women. He brushed a strand of hair from my face, though I never expected to love one. The word, still rare between us, spread warmth through my chest. I rose on tiptoes to kiss him. This man who had entered my life as a threat and somehow become my choice, my future, my home. Behind us, Boston continued its dance of light and shadow. A city of contrasts like the man who held me, dangerous and gentle, ruthless and fair, dark and light in equal measure. And I, once a nobody who had thrown a drink in desperate defense of a friend, had become a woman who had found her place in both worlds. As Alexander deepened the kiss, I smiled against his lips. Sometimes the most unexpected choices lead to the most perfect destinies.